Hi, my name is Cheryl, and I'm on a journey to make myself a better person. I want to learn some new skills. I want to learn things I don't really know about. I want to understand other people. Please join me, comment below, hopefully, subscribe. And later on, I'll probably be doing some more lives when I get more subscribers. I just want to learn and grow as a person. My first episode is going to be about writing. I've always wanted to learn how to write. Yes, everybody learns how to write in school, but I want to make sure what's the difference between an actual world class author and just somebody who writes general notes, and then people like me who've always wanted to be a writer and doesn't know how to start. I wanted to find out what makes a really good author. So, what I first start with, of course, I Googled. Then it told me that there's not really a one best author ever. I mean, there's different genres, there's different languages, and throughout history, there's different ones that were special to different people. Um, One that came up right away was William Shakespeare. He has been taught in classes. He's also been taught um, throughout the ages. He's been relevant since the 1500s. His works are very, very big in the English language. William Shakespeare, during his childhood, there wasn't much said about him. As a young man, the age of 18, he ended up meeting and marrying his wife. He seemed very content. His wife was a few years older than him, and she was actually a poet. William Shakespeare seemed like he was a scrapper. He was always trying to have something better in life. He knew he was creative. He knew that he would be able to think his way out of things. He was very admirable. He strived to make things better. He knew who he was. He ended up being in a troupe called Lord Chamberlain's Men, which later changed their name to the King's Men after King James went to usurp the throne. He and his troupe actually built the Globe Theater, which ended up with Shakespeare being part owner. He helped manage, he acted, and of course, he wrote plays. He wrote many of his famous works between the ages of 25 and 49 before retiring back to his home in Stratford at the age of 52. I have written tons and tons of notes, but I think it would be very, very boring just to see me reading. But I can tell you different aspects of very famous authors. Um, for one, the best author in mystery is Agatha Christie. She's also known as the best-selling author of all time, which is very, very hard to come about. With so many books being sold, how is it that she's the best-selling author still? Even though she has been gone for a long time, her works are still relevant. We still love her works. Movies were made about her books. Things have been said about her in her real life as well. There was one point in her life where she was very upset and in a very troublesome part of her life. And she was in an accident. She ended up going missing for 11 days. Nobody knew where she was. This famous author went missing. And she didn't even know who she was. She had amnesia from the accident. During this time, that caused this chaos in her life. She had lost her mother, and around the same time, she found out that her husband had been keeping a mistress. It just so happens that when they did find her, she was in a hotel under her husband's mistress's name. So some part of her mind was still working. Some part of her was still connected to who she was. Maybe it was just her subconscious that was trying to take a time out to have her heal. Nobody knows for sure. But it seems like in her real life, she was always searching for something her books always had. They had adventure, of course. They had mystery. They had a goal, something to fulfill the detective in the story. Maybe she was searching for something in her real life to fulfill herself. It seems that she may have found it in her second husband, an archaeologist. They met at a dig. And with him, she would go across the world, searching through artifacts, having the adventures that only she could have in her mind, in her books. She did end up settling down and living a content life with her second husband. Another fun fact about Agatha Christie: she was one of 3 children, and she was youngest by about 10 years. Her older sister was actually the one that was supposed to be the great writer, the one that was the golden child. Her brother was a handful, and his parents always seemed to be worried about him and trying to take care of him, even through adulthood. After their parents died, Agatha Christie and her sister Madge ended up taking care of him. They bought him a house, they hired a housekeeper, but it just wasn't enough. He had, I assumed, to be wanderlust. He got bored easy. He ended up moving to France, and soon after, unfortunately, passed away. Oh, the science fiction genre. Under science fiction, there was many mentionables, but one was named the father of sci-fi. That was H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells, of course, had a very famous book called The Time Machine. At this time, nobody even remotely thought that that was a thing. But somehow in his writing, he made it very, very plausible. During his childhood, H.G. Wells ended up having an injury at the age of 7 that caused him to be bedridden for a few months. During this time, reading and books became a very big passion of his. Of course, science had always been his passion, but books became important as well. At the age of 26, he married and had 2 sons. He was not a very faithful husband. Unfortunately, he had many outside affairs. Some children actually were the results of these outside affairs. So there is no actual telling how many children he actually did have. He was known as a futurist, a progressive, an unapologetic socialist. And of course, he was very science oriented throughout his life. Next is the author of fantasy. He's known as the father of modern fantasy. Of course, I'm talking about J.R.R. Tolkien. I haven't read many of his books. I actually started reading one of his first books, but I wasn't able to finish. I did end up seeing one of the movies, The Two Towers, and that was amazing. I don't know how true to the book it was, but just to have inspiration like that shows how imaginative and creative that he actually was. He was a teacher of Old English at two universities. The first university was Leeds and then later Oxford. At Oxford, he was actually part of a literary group called the Inklings. It just so happens C.S. Lewis was a part of the same group, and they became very close friends. He retired from teaching at the age of 67, and then he ended up passing away, unfortunately, at 81. But during those years, he never gave up on his mythological world. I happen to love many different genres of writing. There's horror, there's mystery, there's science fiction, there's fantasy, and in every single genre there is a favorite. Of course, in horror, who can beat Stephen King? Um, I've always been a Stephen King fan, even though it's very, very hard to get through one of his bigger books. But once you get through a few chapters, it's like you cannot put it down. What aspect of writing makes it so you can't put it down? Is it their creativity? Is it their way of speaking? Is it being able to connect to you through the written word? That's what I was trying to find out in this process. He has done so many major works throughout his years. And he also did some notable work under his pen name, Richard Bachman. He has been creative in ways that nobody has thought of before. The things that he connects to are primal fears that aren't monsters, that aren't Dracula or Frankenstein or any of the tropes from before. And it's not a slasher either. It's something in its own genre, its own realm. He does delve a little bit into fantasy as well with the Towers series, the Dark Towers. But there's something inherently connective about his writing. Some way he actually describes things that just take a hold, that we can visualize all these fantastic things, and it to seem normal, like it can be part of our life. Even ones that aren't technically horror, like Hearts in Atlantis and The Green Mile, they are supernatural. They are spiritual in a way. They connect to us as human beings. Stephen King has famously said that he got most of his ideas from just life, from his dreams, from places he's been. Most famously, the Stanley Hotel. While he was staying there, he got many ideas from just being there. Being at the Stanley Hotel ended up giving him the ideas for The Shining. Other people who have gone there have never thought of fantastical things like that, but Stephen King's mind seems to work in a different way that just looks into things and thinks about what if. At a time in his life when he was trying to lose weight, he actually made that into a horror book, and he called it Thinner. What if you were trying to lose weight and you started losing weight and couldn't stop? Things like that. Other people would have just said, well, great, you lose weight. But they never would have thought, what if you can't stop? So maybe that aspect is what makes him able to come up with such interesting subjects. Stephen King has had his fair share of very bad things that happened to him. Of course, everybody has financial hardships. Um, he ended up having alcohol and drug addiction, which thankfully he has had conquered. He was healthy, and he's been healthy for many, many decades now. He was hit by a car on the side of the road while he was walking when he was 52. He had many broken bones, broken ribs, broken hip, and he had a lung that collapsed. Thankfully, he had a full recovery. But these things that he has gone through, I want to reflect on all of the authors that we have discussed, and many of the great authors in each genre that have made notable contributions to the world. They're able to touch us with the written word. That is the mark, I feel, of a true artist, making you able to feel with whatever medium that they're the best at. They were able to draw you into their book's world just through words, through descriptions, through normal human feeling. Mystery authors are able to draw you in, getting to know the characters, getting to know the scene, and trying to figure out who would likely be able to have done this and why. And then when you're just about to say, oh, I know who it is, it ends up being somebody else, or many somebody else's, you know? They draw you in, you think on your toes, but you never know what's going to come around the corner, just like life. Science fiction writers are able to draw us in with fantastical inventions, science that we don't know yet, but they use science that we know now to describe things to make it seem very, very plausible. Horror, they end up finding ways of sending a chill down our back in ways we never even thought possible. And fantasy, they literally build these imaginary worlds through one word at a time. Ironically, none of these authors have anything in common from their backgrounds. Some are only children, some are one of many, some are oldest, some are middle child, some are youngest, some are from lower middle class, some are from upper middle class, some are just scraping to get by. It doesn't really tell you who these people are inside. I guess the only way that they have anything in common is that they feel and see things deeper. They're able to make us feel and see things deeper just through the written word. Stephen King has written a book on writing. I ended up listening to an audiobook of that. He doesn't really tell you need to do this, you need to use that type of syllable or that type of adjective, or you need to write in a certain way, a first person, a third person. He doesn't say that. He said that you need to look around. You need to take things in. Write in a way that you can describe things so people can imagine in their mind. That's how you can truly connect to people. Agatha Christie was very, very famous writer in a time when women weren't able to do anything. That they were just supposed to stay home, be a caregiver to their children, and take care of the house, cook for their husbands. Agatha Christie broke the mold, in my opinion. She showed that she could be more. Yes, she was a mother, and she was a good mother. Yes, she was a wife. Yes, she was a daughter, she was a sister, she was probably a niece. She was many things. We all are. And she was able to share her passion for the written word at a time when people didn't want to hear it from a woman. Now we love her. Now everybody has heard of Agatha Christie. Whether you like that genre or not, you've heard of her. Everybody's heard of Stephen King. These people never really shot for fame. They just had so much in them that they wanted to share with the world. They wanted to share joy, they wanted to share pain, they wanted to share the human condition. They wanted to give people a new outlook. And it works. It's interesting. It's enjoyable. It makes us feel. And I think that's what makes them the authors that they are.